Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and I'm joined today by a longtime subscriber and friend, Born to Beat. How are you, Born?
I'm here. I'm good.
You're here?
I'm good.
You're making me think you don't want to be here, but, you know, I'm doing something a bit different from normal, which, you know, there's always multiple ways to look at things based on classes within games, and really, Destiny or Destiny 2, especially Destiny 2 with its beta right now, is no different and no exception. Born and I are going to go down each of the classes and give our opinions with where they fall. We'll talk about each subclass and then give our overall ranking and our thoughts. There's really going to be no cuts or takes or anything on this, so this is just all uncut, and if you guys like this style, let me know. We'll do more of this. First, in a few words, what did you think of the beta overall, Born?
I mean, I really enjoyed it. My biggest thing is that I actually enjoyed PvP for the first time. In Destiny 1, I actually disliked it to the point it was kind of ridiculous, and now it's slowed down or sped up depending on how you're playing, and it's more callouts, it's more team shotting, and that's something I can get on with.
Gotcha.
But besides that, I very much so enjoyed it. It was entertaining, and I'm really excited for it to actually come out.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I think that's where, you know, a large majority of us are at this point. We just want the freaking game in our hands. That's cool. Yeah, I would easily agree with that statement. Obviously, there may be a lot of changes that happen from now until release, but there are some questionable things that are going on that I thought needed to be brought up. We'll start with the Warlock, just to get my bias out of the way, because we all know how I am with always playing the Warlock. First up, though, is Voidwalker. There's the basics we have to kind of look over. You've got the main purpose of any subclass in my mind. Yes, they're going to have different grenades. Yes, they're going to have slightly different melees. The overall premise, of course, behind any of them is the super. And of course, with the Voidwalker, we've got Nova Bomb. It returns from how it used to be with Destiny 1. But this time, of course, it tracks, but it moves very slowly. It has the option that you can shoot the thing and it'll explode, and, you know, even if it does impact or get shot, it scatters into these smaller things. But it still seems like all of these, the small tracking orbs and Nova Bomb itself, tracks so slowly. And it just feels like it's a very missed opportunity. I found myself a lot of times with it with like one, maybe two targets if I got lucky. I don't know what your experience was overall with it.
In my opinion, it felt very sloppy. It felt very hard to even hit one person sometimes. It was so easy to run away from. Like, yeah, it tracked you, but you could get away from it so easily. And it's so frustrating. As something that I mained in Destiny 1, it's so frustrating to see that.
Oh god, yes. I'm gonna say, as somebody that pretty well prevalently uses Voidwalker myself, as pretty well all my videos showcase, one of the talents I never chose to use was Angry Magic. Only because it felt like it, the release with Nova Bomb felt really off. It didn't feel quite right, and then when it started to actually track, it wasn't smart enough to like really go around corners. They've obviously tweaked that. They've obviously tried to fix some of that, but one of the biggest issues more than anything is with that slow launch. It doesn't feel like it has that same push that the bomb used to have, and it lands in these like really weird places and it just goes wherever it wants to. I could think of like several times actually in Crucible, especially Crucible, where I actually had it go over top of people's heads and come back down, hit the ground, and shatter. I was maybe lucky if I ended up getting a hold of like the scatter shells to do any damage. It just feels so weak. There's something about it that just feels really weak.
I definitely agree. It's not something that's very logical to use in Crucible right now. It works in PvP pretty well, but in Crucible I just did not find it to be fun. I just didn't find it to be what I enjoyed from Destiny 1 for Voidwalker, so.
You should state this too, because I forgot to mention this earlier. We're not talking about the upgrade points. We're not theory crafting the upgrade points at all. This is just the stuff that we were given over the course of beta to actually sit and play with. It didn't game change anything like Blizzard, like Bungie constantly talks about with how supers are supposed to handle. There's just something about it that just feels weird. If anybody else has any thoughts on it, obviously let us know what was your luck with Nova Bomb, because mine was god-awful. But other pieces with Voidwalker, of course, go back to stuff like grenades. And to me, and this is a common problem with any of the classes at the moment, minus like 1 or 2 grenades, but I feel that the persistent effect grenades are the ones that are most effective. Now, obviously, of course, Bungie has decided to tone down the effects of most grenades, but the only one that really, to me, felt like it was worthwhile or worth anything in either Crucible or in PvE was Void Grenade. I didn't see much other reason to use Scatter or Axion Bolt because both of them do such low amounts of damage.
I definitely agree with that. I'm going to keep jumping back to D1 because what I'm used to.
Sure.
I definitely used Axion a lot in D1, and now I'm like, oh, okay, this is like Nova Bomb all over again. Right. I felt cheated again, and it's like, oh, well, okay, I'm just gonna switch everything that I'm used to up, which, I mean, that's good, in a way. It's changing my playstyle, and I mean, that's the point. It is technically a new game, so you do need to change some things, but it's like, yeah. I don't know, I want my roots. I want my roots to be there.
I agree. I agree highly, and I think that's where, like, I used to use Void Grenade quite often as it was, so for me it's not a real big deal, but I used to also use Scatter Grenade, and even with the amped up super effect of it, where you can, like, channel a little bit of your super energy into the grenade to deal some more power, I still felt like it was only an extra, like, maybe 10 or 15 or 20% difference that I would do in damage between having either Axion or Scatter. It just doesn't seem like it boosts that much. Along with the fact that, of course, for a Voidwalker to chew more super, that's already a resource that's, at least in the beta, was very, very hard to get back. You know, even in PvE, it was still a little tough to get a hold of again. Side note, of course, I already know about all the stuff that they're doing. They are increasing super regeneration, they're changing some cooldown timers, so on. But for what the beta felt like, that definitely was needed, and I think Voidwalker's a big reason why. Well, as anything with Warlock, of course, the melee has always been one of the biggest things. I still felt like after playing all 3 of them that the melee on Warlock was the most accurate of all of them. I'm not sure if that's because of the way that it's more of like a conal effect, more than, of course, Titans with the punching and even Hunters with the punching or the knifing. It just feels like the melee for Warlock seemed to attach itself to the target a little better. One of the biggest problems, though, is just not having something, especially with how squishy Warlocks really felt through PvP or even in PvE, not having Devour available, one of those upgrade points to regenerate health and whatnot. It was noticeable as somebody that does like to use lifesteal currently in Destiny 1.
Definitely, because that's what I use all the time, and it's like, it's something you're so used to, and it's like, oh, okay. I wanted that so much. I wanted that so much, but you never know. It's probably going to be there, but it's like, I want it now.
Yeah, but again, that's just Voidwalker, and we've been talking for a while here already. I feel that Voidwalkers are a discussion to have because of the place they're kind of in. And again, it could just be my bias that's coming through on that angle. I don't know. I feel like there was something that was definitely missing with them. It's that power debate. I didn't feel powerful when I was using it.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, you're having 2 people who main almost specifically Voidwalker. You knew there was going to be a discussion there. You knew it was going to be longer. But yeah, definitely, it felt so weak and so slow and so sloppy, and it was like, it was something that it irks me still so much.
Well, the next one up obviously would end up being Dawnblade. Long story short, I felt that the Dawnblade was a very powerful super, and it could basically connect with multiple targets as soon as you started to get used to it. The aiming of it actually felt more like a Nova Bomb aim, and as somebody that was even, you know, at this point kind of used to throwing hammers in Destiny 1, it is a different aiming style than even that is. But especially for me, that's where I kind of felt that was the true Nova Bomb, but just like a mini Nova Bomb that was getting thrown about left and right. And especially as soon as you launch into the air, you're a sitting duck as soon as you're in the air. I really feel like, especially in PvP, as soon as you end up getting into the air, you're effectively just a sitting duck if you don't have Icarus available.
Yeah, see, now this is something that I actually really much so enjoyed. It's what I use like most of the time when I was playing, and my huge thing, and I would yell it every time, is I can fly. I loved it. Like, I loved the freedom of being able to just be like, especially in PvE, going over everything and then just turning around and killing a bunch of stuff really easily. It was great, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. But I agree, you felt like you were sitting at just a flying target that people are like, okay, time to shoot this down. It was like duck hunting. That's what it felt like.
PvP especially, but then like PvE, yeah, I still had those minotaurs that were like looking up at me like, yeah, we're just gonna plink you now, you're pretty much dead. If we had Phoenix Dive for Dawnblade, then it would have probably been okay, because I think that'll actually add in the ability for us to actually like drop down, but I think that is one of the missing pieces that, again, we didn't have a chance to really play with. If anything, I think what needs to be added with Dawnblade is the ability to melee. It's all ranged attacks, and the wind up on it can actually feel kind of long. It's definitely very reminiscent of throwing a hammer. The hammer wind up time takes a little bit before you can chuck another one, or even before that one that you have leaves your hand. But that's one thing that I think would diversify it a little bit more to help, like, pop the super and suddenly you start clearing, like, waves and waves of enemies, especially in a PvE scenario. I didn't get that feeling in PvE all that often. That's the thing that kind of irked me a little bit.
Definitely, yeah. It was frustrating when you, especially in PvP for me, it was like, okay, I'm gonna pop my super. Since you can see who has the super, if they see you doing it, they're instantly going to go after you and try to shut you down right away. And it felt so hard to get away and then be able to do the range attacks, or range attacks. So it was more like, I wish there was a way to like, okay, I'm going to damage you and then get away and then be able to do the actual attack. Without that, it felt very hard to use it in PvP sometimes. Now, if you were, like, coming at someone, then it was fine, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I think that about sums it up on the super. It feels like it's missing something. I think that's where I can kind of leave it. But again, with the grenades, I think that, again, we've got the same problem. The persistent effect grenades are the ones that are going to kind of shine the most. And obviously, of course, Dawnblade has the solar grenade. That one, I think, is the best one to utilize. Firebolt still has this problem where I've always felt that it's very lacking in accuracy. It's very random in how many targets it actually seems to hit. Sometimes it'll hit 2, sometimes it'll hit 4, and it just seems like it's all over the place. It also, again, doesn't seem like it has a lot of damage behind it, and that's a big problem for me. Fusion Grenade, otherwise, I also put into more of a cons list. I gotta be honest, I love the fact that fusion grenades are not a one-hit kill. I hate the fact that fusion grenades do so little damage. They still require a little bit more aim than the typical grenade does, and you're still winging it at somebody and hitting them with it, but overall, what is the thing that's happening? I maybe see the shield go down to about 3/4 on a full health target. That's a bit of a problem. That, to me, doesn't scream that it's a very well-utilized grenade.
I agree. I am someone that sticks straight to what I find I enjoy. I'm really bad about not trying and being diverse about stuff, so to me, using just the solar grenade is always the best, and I always found it to be the best even before. It was very, very nice to be able to throw a sun at the ground and be like constant damage. I always enjoyed that.
Look at all the suns!
Always just enjoyed throwing suns everywhere. So
right. Well, and then for their melee strike, it felt like they pulled that straight from Voidwalker. Swift Strike actually feels very similar to, and I forget, the first passive skill that the Voidwalkers have on their melee, but the best thing about it is that it does increase your reload speed, it increases your speeds overall, handling, so on. It feels very good to utilize, and having the added burn effect on it is also really freaking cool. So Swift Strike definitely gets my vote in terms of like utilization and being able to move around a little bit more. Icarus is just absolutely ridiculous. The simple fact that they took the Twilight Garrison or type effect away from Titans, at least for the time being, and have now effectively only given it to Warlocks in a passive format is absolutely incredible. But it's just a lot easier to kind of get in and out of engagements very quickly. And it did help in scenarios where I was utilizing the super and didn't get myself shot down too quickly, but it's still like a one-off like leap over this way before I still inevitably got killed in the air.
Yeah, I I agree. I don't really have much to say on that beyond the fact that it was awesome. So, yeah.
That's about all I have for Dawnblade myself. I would definitely say that it's a fun class to utilize. I still think grenades are a little bit more on the to be desired thing, but right now that's what I'm finding with Warlock in general.
Yeah, definitely. With Dawnblade was definitely my favorite to play during the beta. It was fun to just be able to fly around. That was my best thing about it. I just like being able to fly.
Overall, where would you place Warlocks?
Oh, that's such a biased question, though. It's not even fair. I'm horrible, so this is just going to be my own warning. I barely played anything else. So for me, it's like, okay, my Warlock is always my highest. My Warlock's always going to be my highest, and that's just because I am a creature of habit and do not like to change. So right. I can't really give a full honest answer on that, so I'll leave that to you.
Well, I'm going to say for me personally, having experience with playing all of them, I would probably say that Warlocks are in a good position. Obviously, I think that there is some stuff that needs to be changed about them. One of the reasons I wouldn't give them like a great or excellent or any other factos or accolades at all is the simple fact that I think Nova Bomb needs to be tweaked. And again, not having actually utilized any of those upgrade points that they're talking about, I think that is one thing that overall we will need to kind of play with to know what it is that's actually going on with Nova Bomb. But that is the big question right now for me. Like, being a Voidwalker for as long as I have been, what are they going to do with it overall? I would put Warlock at like at least a 7 or 8 out of 10 if I had to give it a number rating. But I would definitely lean more towards the 7 out of 10.
Yeah, so if I'm being completely honest, if I want to ignore my bias, I would agree. I agree with a 7. I might lean a little bit more towards the 8 just because it's Warlock. Because of Dawnblade more than anything, honestly, just because of what I experienced with the other ones. So, yeah, I do lean a little bit closer to the 8, but I agree with that.
But moving on, we'll go actually over to the Hunter. Again, we'll kind of start with the older class first, so we'll talk about Gunslinger as the first one. And we gotta just lead off here with one thing. Is the dodge mechanic on Hunter enough for it to kind of stand out when all is said and done? Because that's something we didn't necessarily touch base on with the Warlock, but I just find that, Empowering Field and Healing Field don't really need a lot of discussing. They're realistically just there. They do a lot overall for the team. And they bring that mechanic into the team format that definitely helps them to stand out. Hunters don't have this extra mechanic that helps for team play. They're very self-centered in that respect.
Well, that's to be expected with Hunters, so...
Yeah. Gunslinger, the way that they kind of handle it. Golden Gun, my usage on it was very weird. I could go ahead and pop it, and I would have, like, a couple guys around me. All of a sudden, my team ends up actually, like, shooting them down, and I'm like, well, now what? Because this thing ends so fast that as soon as you go around, like, the next couple corners, it's over. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that I have right now with Golden Gun. In PvP, it doesn't last long enough as a roaming super to necessarily feel intimidating enough. If we're talking like a point clear, say for instance there are 4 guys in a point, yeah, sure, pop it then, but you could effectively get the same exact results by having a Nova Bomb go ahead and throw itself onto that exact point. The only difference is that one effectively has a little bit more effort behind it, where you actually have to aim and shoot, and the time to kill versus a Nova Bomb's going to win every single day with either 4 stagnated or fairly stagnated targets. So meanwhile, you've got this problem with Golden Gun where you need to sit and be accurate with your shots every time. And in PvE, forget it. Golden Gun in PvE is one of the worst things I think I had to actually utilize in any kit on any of the 3 characters that I played as, because one Golden Gun shot doesn't kill a target. Even on a basic Goblin, I think the best I could do was take it down to like, I think it was like a quarter health left over, but it was very, very low overall. So Golden Gun's effectiveness in its current state definitely feels like, and again without the upgrade points, definitely feels like it's in a weird spot.
Yeah, see, I didn't play it at all, but from what I experienced, now I didn't play Gunslinger in D1 at all either. I don't know. I did not enjoy it. I'm not the kind of person that enjoys aiming my super that much, even if it is aim assisted to the point it's kind of ridiculous. I just didn't enjoy it either way. But for what I experienced is the panic that comes with Golden Gun when somebody pops it on D1 in PvP is insane. You run away, you try to get away as fast as possible, you try to avoid it at all costs. And then in D2, obviously in the beta, it was, oh, somebody popped it. Let's run away for 2 seconds and then turn around and shoot them, and easy. It was so easy. That was literally the quickest strategy to come up with any of the supers. The other supers, a lot of them you would have to run, or at least get some kind of bearing of where to go to get away. Not with Gunslinger, not with the Golden Gun at all. It was like, turn around, run for a few seconds, and turn around and just shoot them. And it was so easy. It was so weird. And it was like, then you go back to D1 and you get shot in the face by a Golden Gun. And it was like, oh, where'd that come from?
I think that's overall the biggest thing. Like in Destiny 1, I felt like Golden Gun was a very intimidating factor. And on like a point clearer or something like that, if you were accurate with it, you could take your time with it a little bit more. And obviously, of course, the 6 shots versus 3, which is going to be an option again in Destiny 2, it's still a weird feeling. So again, we have to kind of play with it in its different iterations, but as the 6 shooter goes, I'm not impressed. What is kind of interesting about the Hunters, though, is that they've got 2 grenades that I felt really work well. One not necessarily for damage, but the other especially for damage. The one that's very good for damage is Incendiary, and obviously, of course, it leaves that burn on the target. It still feels powerful. And it still has the option where you can like bank it into different corners and drop it into different areas. It just works very well. But the other one that I really still like is Swarm. And Swarm has that effect where it's a good trap bassist, where you can kind of just plant it, walk away for a little while, somebody comes up behind you, they walk into the thing, and that target is a little bit on the chipped side. But it's also good for if you're trying to track down a target, you're not sure if they're like left or right within a corridor, the Swarm kind of helps you to figure out where they are. So I've always, as a personal thing, liked these tracking grenades that allow you to kind of know where a target is. But Trip Mine still, again, feels too weak. I feel like it has that fusion factor. Any of those fusion or stick type grenades really do feel weak. I think that's something that Trip Mine grenade kind of needs a little bit more of.
Again, I can't say anything.
Well, more like, in your case, like, how many grenades did you end up getting killed by, and, like, which ones were they? Which ones posed the most threats to you, if you can think back on your experience?
Not many, really. I mean, for some reason, it felt very easily avoidable in a lot of cases. Or very easily, just, it didn't do as much damage, so it was easy to hide and get your health back. So, honestly, not very many. And from what I can remember, with Hunters, I don't really remember.
Okay. Well, there goes that thought. Obviously, of course, the great thing with Hunters, they still have their knife in a couple cases. Gunslinger, they have it. So they can still go up and knife you in the face, which is the best thing about it. But the nicest thing about the knife is that they've added this explosive knife feature, which effectively means that you've got kind of 2 grenades at your disposal. I honestly think that that was one of my favorite skills to use when I was on my Hunter. When I was playing in beta, I felt like that was the best skill that they had.
Now, the really only thing that I can add to that is everybody that I know who was playing it definitely agreed with you. They all talked about it. That was the most talked about thing I heard when it came to Hunter or Gunslinger. But it was the only thing I heard when it was being talked about, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad you guys got something you enjoy.
Yeah, I'm gonna say at least there was one thing.
Yeah.
You know, closing thoughts on the Gunslinger, I feel like overall the talents, the skills are there, but I think the super needs some definite work, not just judging by what we were able to play with, not judging by the upgrade points or theory crafting on the upgrade points, but the idea is definitely there that I think I would enjoy still playing the Gunslinger. But I still have to question that they still only have like this dodge mechanic right now, which in PvP is very good, but in PvE worked in a very specific fashion. There were only a couple of instances I really found that I needed to use it.
Definitely. The dodge effect is an interesting addition. I mean, like, the way they added it, I should say. It's an interesting one. It makes it can be utilized well if you know how to use it.
But especially, I would say, with, and we'll just swing right into it, the Arc Strider, or the Pole Dancer, however you want to call it. But effectively, I think Arc Strider takes that melee component to a completely different level than I think that Blade Dancer ever could. Just going up and punching things, or being able to track things down, or dodging left and right and then meleeing into something. Those are the things that I felt that Arc Strider really did very well. And that's, I think, where the super effectively comes into it. But I think one of the biggest things, you still have to get closer to your target to do anything. And I felt like team shooting wise, if you aren't careful, the other team is just going to knock you down.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of the similar idea as, of course, Downblade, but the idea that you're trying to get in close, and it's more like that fear you're going to get killed the instant you're getting close to them. But it's just the kind of super it is, but also combos. I love it. It makes me feel like I'm in a fighting game. And okay, this is the only one I obviously played on Hunter. And I very much so enjoyed being able to just be messing around with just you can use it so many different ways.
Sure.
And it felt like it had enough of a reach that I could play with it. Like, it was something I genuinely could play with and use differently. It was very, very entertaining.
I feel it's one of those cases of it's very difficult to master, and there's a lot of intricacies behind it, especially when you start talking with the combo system and everything like that. Adding into that kind of idea is a whole new thing for Destiny, and especially not just the Hunter class, but just for any class in general. So it adds that different depth that I definitely do enjoy. That's the thing I think I kept going back to the Arc Strider for.
Yeah, it's a lot. It was something I enjoyed because I didn't like Blade Dancer on Hunter personally. So it was a change to it that I liked a lot. It was more, I don't know, like I said, it was more entertaining. Even if you weren't good at it, it was still cool to watch. And I liked that. That was something I enjoyed because it was like, oh, okay, I can do really weird, awkward flips that look really cool. And you actually, in a weird way, look like a pole dancer, like I'll call it, and I love it.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I think that's one of the things I don't think it's talked about quite often with getting rid of Blade Dancer and putting in Arc Strider. I feel like Arc Strider is quicker with their attacks and realistically has the capability to still maneuver like the Hunter typically will, but overall has the ability to do more damage in that same kind of stretch of time. And I also felt like the Arc Strider lasted a very long time. Of the few times I was realistically able to use the thing and the time I had to play it, I felt like it was the longest lasting of the supers that I had. And that's even with, like, sitting there swinging, like, 9 times out of 10. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it did last quite a while. And it was entertaining to watch other people, like, play around, though.
Definitely. It was at least entertaining. Okay, that kind of covers out the super, but I still think that Hunter has a couple of good things going for it with its grenades, Arc Bolt and Skip. And basically for the same reasons we had before. Arc Bolt actually feels like it actually works. Skip Grenade, same reason basically as Swarm Grenade. It gives that ability to kind of know where a target is. They have Flux. They have a fusion type grenade, and again, I think they're in a very bad spot.
That I honestly like the Skip Grenades, at least from what I've seen, because like I said, I didn't use the Swarm ones. I like the Skip Grenades because I felt like they were more accurate almost, because in Destiny 1 they weren't always super accurate and they bounced so weird sometimes. I feel like they actually fixed that. I feel like that is something I can happily say, that Skip Grenades are actually scary for once.
I'm gonna say that if you use Shinobu's Vows or something like that in Destiny 1, they're definitely scary now, just having those 2 of them. But the fact that we're back down to almost regularly only 1 Skip Grenade at this point, I still am kind of taken aback by how much more effective they feel.
Definitely,
But for grenades, I still wonder what they're doing with these fusion types. Anyway, for melee though, it's a very different experience. You lose the knife. Now all of a sudden it just comes down to your fist, and your fist being charged like a titan, basically, with like arc energy. And it's a weird experience to actually, and weird a personal thing to kind of see your hunter just charge in with a fist. The concept behind it I can kind of understand. And I really do feel like on Arcstrider I underutilized dodge because I started with the Gunslinger. And the Gunslinger doesn't get back dodge counters quite as fast as what the Arcstrider does. And that's the thing that I do like about it. It starts to really take more and more and more advantage of that innate base class idea. Now, obviously, of course, again, as we spoke about before, the dodge mechanic or even the basis on Hunter, Arcstrider is obviously your melee Hunter. Gunslinger is obviously your ranged Hunter. But between the two of them, I feel like they need to find this middle ground to make dodge realistically stand out and worth it, at least amongst the two classes.
Yeah, see, the melee with this I keep saying entertaining. It entertained me because it's really cool to look at it because they use something that's a martial arts thing that's really, really cool because it's a sideways punch. It's a very quick jab. It's meant to be a jab. It's meant to be, I'm going to do damage and get away quick. Because that's what that kind of punch is if you use it in real life. It's very fast, and it's meant to be something that's you're protecting yourself at the same time as going quick to get away. You're doing damage at the same time. And that's what a hunter is. They're sneaky, and they're quick, and they're able to get in close and then get away quick.
Right.
And it actually is showing that they're using this real life thing that I love so much. And they're actually making it make sense instead of a Titan just punching things in the face.
I was almost kind of disappointed that they didn't add a like 1-2 mechanic for the melee for hunters, but I know that would end up getting like really overpowered if that ended up happening. Just making them into this like almighty melee class that would make Titans like jealous as all get out.
It's definitely a nice thing to watch though, because watching somebody else use the melee and then being able to use the dodge right away, like somebody who actually used that in a way that makes it make sense, was really cool because it was literally like punch and get out of there. So that was the best way to utilize the dodge, I feel like, especially with the melee, and since it recharged it so much quicker, it was like dodge into it, punch, dodge out of it.
Right.
And you could use it that way so easily, and it made it very easy to use if you actually could utilize the dodge correctly in that sense.
As a personal overall idea, I think that Arcstrider helps the hunter to feel better, and I think that's definitely what they had in mind. But they need to give a little bit more love and attention to Gunslinger. Outside of that throwing knife, man, I can't figure out what they're doing with the skills otherwise, or at least with like the damage numbers. And that's easy to fix, thankfully. What I've played so far of the beta almost makes me feel like they wanted to start really low and then kind of do this creep factor upwards. Kind of opposite of what they did with Destiny 1, where we started out super powerful and now we're like a little much less powerful. It's this opposite effect. They didn't want to have to nerf everything to the ground like they've been doing.
They learned their lesson.
Yeah, just a little bit. But I think overall, hunters are in an okay spot, but realistically held up by the fact that Arcstrider is a very strong subclass. I do feel that in terms of the way that Gunslinger is handling, I, at least personally, don't see a lot of reason to bother running Gunslinger unless you want to throw some knives. So, with Hunters down, we have to talk about Titans. I really don't want to, but I guess here we go. You'll find out why I say that really, really fast. Obviously, of course, we're going to end up starting with Striker, so let's get Thunderstruck. Striker Titan felt, of course, very different from how it used to feel in Destiny 1. Now it's this overly devastating, extremely powerful, lightning running powerhouse that I just feel like is absolutely what they needed to do with the Striker to make it feel a little bit more devastating than typical. Honestly, I have zero cons to the way that I felt like Striker Titans were put together, or at least with how Fist of Havoc was put together. I feel like it was very strong. It was very menacing and devastating in PvP or PvE.
I avoided it. to be completely honest. But I mean, when I did use of it, it's great as a roaming super. Using Striker as a roaming super is great. I loved being able to just it took a lot to get used to it because it's such a small range of damage compared to D1, so it was hard to get used to. I can't be this far away from somebody and then damage them with it, so it was hard to get used to. But relying on the fact you can just do it again, it made it so, it made it entertaining, it made it fun. I just don't Titan at all. Like, I may not seem like I use hunters, but Titans, no, just no.
But you touched based on the one thing that I did want to bring up, and it's that roaming super idea. They're grenades, though. Strikers have, to me, extremely reliable and very, very tough grenades to end up beating. Pulse grenade. I feel like that got a huge buff in comparison to how it used to be in Destiny 1, outside of that initial pulse effect that you see, like, most of the guys that get hit by it die. Obviously, that's basically removed in Destiny 2, but the damage potential that Pulse has, I found, was very strong and very worth doing. It also feels like it has a higher range of effect than any of the other persistent grenades. Higher than what you'll find with Solar, higher than what you'll find with Void. So for me, this was like this was the best of the PvE ones to utilize, and then in PvP it was either Lightning or Flashbang, because either of them have some kind of utilization that I can use. Flashbang, obviously, I'm blinding a target. I'm taking them away from that already, like, either low-end damage that they can do on their guns from a farther distance and giving myself time to close in, or I am on Lightning Grenade holding a point a little bit heavier than I typically would be able to. So all three of the grenades that Strikers have are just absolutely on point, and they kind of have been since day one in Destiny. In Destiny 2, they still feel so heavily utilized and so, to me, perfect in comparison to the other classes. And when I've got cons that are listed inside of the like all the other classes and subclasses, I have nothing for Striker right now when it comes to grenades. They're just, to me, perfect.
I don't have much to say on the grenades in this case, but the one thing I can say is that the flashbangs seem a lot more annoying, which is a good thing.
And it's something
like,
you want them to be.
Having them used against you, having them be annoying, which is a good thing in the sense that it's annoying you, and that means you can't see anything. That means you die super easily. It was good for team play. It was good for, I'm gonna throw a flashbang, and then you're gonna do this, and then you're gonna do this, and it'll work perfectly. You can wipe out a full team almost right away in that 1 second, and it works so well.
Well, and add in the simple fact that, like, initially Titans also have the ability to get 2 grenades. So if you end up getting onto a point that's heavily contested and you have a Striker that can chuck a flashbang, at that point, if any of the targets are affected, now at this point it's just about as good as a super. You can have a team of even 1 or 2 guys go up against like 3 or 4 and almost reliably wipe them out almost every time if the target's affected by flashbang can't see through it proper. So it adds this like mini super that these Titans have that just adds this extra factor of reliability. And on something like Control, or even in Countdown, where again it's a little bit more point specific, that just amplifies the need for something like flashbang. It just adds this entire new level of strategy that's just like, why doesn't another class have this? It just feels like it's very powerful in comparison, especially when you give Strikers the ability to have 2 grenades. If you go in and you start meleeing like you pretty much want to do as a Titan, you start getting all of that grenade energy back. And it's just this constant need to have a grenade. And you're in this feedback loop of absolute destruction because you're smacking people in the face, getting a grenade, throwing said grenade, and punching them again. It's just, I don't know why this versatility exists so heavily with the Strikers, but that synergy is there in more ways than I would say that even like the Arc Strider has with getting its dodge ability back.
Yeah, I just, all I know is Titans and they're punching, and ugh. Again, annoying is a good thing. Annoying means that it works. It's just, so annoying.
Yeah. And I'm honestly just going to read my, like, overall points here for like, what I listed for strikers. Versatile damage dealer, fast hitting, and then travel to other targets. At that point, the ability to actually travel as a roaming super with Fist of Havoc is just absolutely ridiculous. The fact that it has a smaller radius, I don't care, because I can realistically plant this thing in a couple different places at least. And that adds this extra level of versatility that you didn't have with the original. So I honestly have to give big props to Bungie for what they did with Strikers. I feel they're incredibly fun to play. As a Warlock, I am saying this. And I feel that they're incredibly versatile. Do you have any other closing thoughts on the Striker and how much you got your face pounded in by one?
I mean, I got my face pounded in by one multiple times, and I don't want to talk about it. It's the one thing that Bungie actually did right with an old super. They actually made it better, and I applaud them for that, because people were afraid of that being a roaming super for multiple reasons, either it being overpowered or it not being powerful enough, and I feel like they found the best balance they could. And it just makes me so sad to say that out loud.
Yeah, especially when you start thinking about something like, you know, Warlock or Hunter with Gunslinger or something like that. It makes you wonder where all of the care and attention went into it. And Striker really does stand out as that, like, really, at least, again, to me, this is all opinion-based, but I still feel like they're absolutely the shining gem of the old subclasses compared to what we have with the other two. There's so much versatility there. I'm blown away by the fact that there's that much versatility.
Versatility, now the key word for Titan.
Basically, and it doesn't slow down, because now we're going to talk about Captain Cosmodrome, because oh my god, it is going to get worse. The shield has an effect on it that I really wanted to see added into Destiny, and that was a riot shield aspect, and it has it. But the simple fact that you can go from damage dealing to guarding, and then also have the capability to still place a Ward of Dawn if you want to, is insane. That super just got two effective purposes. So once again, Titans start to stand out in this different measure of versatility. This is nuts.
It's ridiculous, and it's very frustrating. And as somebody, again, who I will repeat myself every time I think about it, Titans, I have a lot of not happy thoughts about Titans, and it's so frustrating as somebody who does not main a Titan. And it's great for people who do, because they've become, and they were before for the most part, this like you said, versatile, playable thing that you can just, you can do so much. And it's a team play thing, or it's a lone wolf thing. You can use it in so many ways. But I do have to say, like you were saying, throwing the shield, that was my only frustration, and the only reason why when I was playing the Titan as little as I did, I went back to Striker, was because I got frustrated with throwing the shield. And I wanted to enjoy that, because I wanted to be Captain America so badly. I didn't like the way it threw, but if you could get it to work right, and if you were good at it, it was effective. It was very effective.
And again, we have to go ahead and talk about the grenades then, of course, for Sentinel. They have a fusion grenade, but the difference, of course, here with magnetic grenade is that it's able to detonate twice over. The damage is still not quite as high-ended as it used to be. It's obviously still not a one-hit kill, but it does still do more damage than the typical fusion grenade. And that is something that, again, I have to question. This is a defensive class, and you're chucking a fusion grenade at something, or fusion-like grenades, and the double detonation is still available and still doing a good amount more damage. So there's this, again, aspect of damage that's being put into this highly defensive class, and Magnetic Grenade is given the overall what I think should be the constant damage for fusion grenades, and I have to question why. Void Wall being given to Sentinels is a great idea. I love the implementation of it. I love the fact that it can be available there. I absolutely am impressed with the fact that it can be Void Wall always has been this way when it was introduced, a means to get people out of places that they shouldn't be. It's a very good territory controller, and it always has been. So giving Sentinels that was a good idea. But the last one, obviously, that I'm going to talk about is Suppression. And Suppression, once again, gets this double aspect to it that, again, adds like this small mini super effect. Now, all of a sudden, you're stopping somebody from double jumping. You're stopping somebody from using melee or a grenade like we're very used to seeing, or even, God forbid, their super, or stopping them when they're in super by hucking this thing if you're accurate enough. This feedback loop again of just shutdown after shutdown when it comes down to Sentinels, and being able to suppress abilities in a game where the abilities are already that limited. Suppressor grenade just went up leaps and bounds in usability. Well, and it always has been very annoying, but especially in this case where everything is just like on a to the 10th degree, where you don't have that many grenades or melees, and then here comes a suppression grenade. Well, thanks a lot, Suppression.
Yeah, and it's annoying because you have so few opportunities to use your super, and then all of a sudden you're pushed straight out of it, or it's stopping you from using it, and it's like, but I want to use it. I want to be able to do something. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's something I completely agree with, is the grenades for Sentinel are it's not even something like I feel like I should compliment. Like, they're overpowered. They're so overpowered, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that I feel like it is a class. Titans just got the overall great when it came down to grenades. Like, period. You cannot go wrong with whatever grenade you have if you kind of utilize it in some half-assed fashion that actually makes sense. It'll still work out just fine for you. Their melee adds this level of versatility that I never expected to really see. Obviously, of course, Sentinels or Defender Titans in Destiny 1 had the ability to use Disintegrate, and Disintegrate would add that overshield to the character. We've received that again as a Sentinel, but this time the Sentinel is able to, on kill, grant that to surrounding allies. In Crucible, this is so incredibly frustrating when you almost have somebody dead. And it's this constant, again, I mentioned it before, this feedback loop of shutdown after shutdown. It's this effectiveness that we don't necessarily see from all of the other classes. And this is even saying that Warlocks have Healing Field. The benefits of Healing Field are obviously that it does heal very quickly, but it's in a set spot. This is a roaming ability. This is something that Titans just go up to somebody, punch them, and they get this overshield. I'm flabbergasted by the absolute fact that this exists, because it adds another aspect to the Titan that I wouldn't have necessarily pegged it to have. This is to me, an overpowered aspect of the Titan.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a defender is supposed to be able to do that. They're supposed to shut down things. They're supposed to be able to help their teammates and defend their teammates. But it's ridiculous.
Agreed.
It's ridiculous. And I can see how I just sound like I'm complaining about Titans, because that's what I normally do. But no, I could see why it's desirable, but I can also see how it's going to get absolutely ridiculous. And I really do hope it's kind of balanced better in that point. That's the only huge frustration with Titans is the fact that they are defensive to the point that there's no breaks in their defenses sometimes.
I would agree with that. I think that overall that is one of the biggest things, and kind of why I wanted to leave the Titan for last, because overall I think that they're the best position right now when it comes down to classes, subclasses or not, just as a class as a whole. I would honestly place them as being like versatile gods right now. They're in this place where they realistically can fit any circumstance. They're in this place where they can realistically get in with any grenade that they have and be somewhat effective, where currently I would say that like a couple of the grenades in the other classes are otherwise usable, where a couple of the instances of melee are otherwise usable, and where the empowering or healing field is very effective on Warlock. you still have the barriers, you still have the overshields, you still have the shutdown that Titan grants it. I'm trying to understand what they were thinking with giving this much versatility to one class and having the other two suffer to the nth degree, in my opinion. That's how it kind of feels.
My opinion's along the same lines. It's like it's making the other classes feel very limited, and it makes them feel very difficult to use in a lot of PvP standpoints. It makes them very difficult to get used to. It makes me so sad. But also at the same time, it's great to have on your team, of course, because you're having that versatility, you're having that security of this giant hulking thing helping you out. It's very useful, and it's hard to get mad at it 100%. Just because of that.
Yeah.
So, versatility, good on them for that, but too much sometimes.
Okay, well, any final thoughts at all, Born? I know we've talked over for, at least for my count right here, about an hour, 20 minutes, but...
Obviously, there's a lot to say about the beta. There's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to look forward to for the game itself when it comes out. I believe, I don't remember how many days, but I know it's 30 some, and I'm really excited. I really hope that there's a lot of things that are fixed that haven't been discussed yet by Bungie, and I really hope that there are things that are balanced. Balanced is the biggest word that I can use right now. But for sure, I'm very excited. I'm very much so looking forward to seeing everybody enjoy it, enjoying it for myself. For myself, Twitter is my best place to find me. So if you want to look for me, I'll be there. I'm not very exciting, but I'm there.
Well, I do hope that I do thank you for being here too, Born. It was fun sitting here doing this for sure. I find these videos to be, you know, with alternative thoughts and similar thoughts, they tend to help see what you guys think as well. Perspectives are what matter, and that's the big deal when it comes down to like this open podcast kind of format style. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this style, and if you'd like to see more or hear more of it with community involvement. I want to get more of you involved in this stuff, which is why I'm doing all the art at the start of our videos and stuff like that too. You can join up on Discord or follow me on Twitter, send in your ideas, email me, which, to be honest, I check a lot less than I probably should. I guess I'll have to fix that. In either case, guys, I've got one more beta video that I need to talk about, and then after that, I promise I'm done looking into it. The beta should totally be a thing of the past at this point, minus, of course, what we're going to experience on PC. I'm just behind on my video creation because computer problems and life and stuff. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys so very much for going ahead and being patient with me while I get all this stuff together. If you're not sure what to say, leave the phrase Captain Cosmodrome in a comment below. And I'll see you next Spacetime, Guardians. Take care.